Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Farmers Corners FC, the French football podcast with the accent. We are back with the part two of our Ligue 1 season preview, the season 21-22, who is starting in a few days now. Saturday nights, Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, all weekend. The game are starting. The first game of the season will be Troyes versus Paris Saint-Germain, and I am, of course, looking forward to seeing French football back on our screen. We're not going to wait for too long. Quickly, for anybody who hasn't watched it, Lille Paris Saint-Germain was the Trophée des Champions, the equivalent of the Community Shield here in France, or back home in France, should I say. And Lille won 1-0. Paris Saint-Germain had won 8 Trophée des Champions before this season, and they finally failed to win it. It's another little stain on Maurizio Pochettino's board. Hopefully, he's going to have a good season after that. Right now, though, we're going to focus on the other teams of Ligue 1. We've done the top 10 last time. We're going to do the bottom 8, rather the bottom 10, but it's the bottom 8 from last season plus the two teams that came from Ligue 2, Clermont and Troyes, just to focus on what we can expect from those teams and what happened during the off-season. You'll see that for a couple of teams, quite a bit has happened. For whoever is listening to this podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts, you know the drill, music. Anybody else who's just watching on YouTube, no music for you, but hey, let's get straight into it. AS Saint-Etienne is the first team we're going to talk about. Les Verts, the club in France who's won the most championship, the club who is struggling in the past few years. The coach is Claude Puel, who took over in October 2019. He took over after Saint Etienne was on a good run. Christophe Galtier as a coach, and then Jean-Louis Gasset as a coach had done a good job in Saint Etienne. So much so that in 2019 they finished fourth. In 2019-2020 they played the Europa League. Unfortunately, it doesn't work out. The coach at the time, Ghislain Printemps, is thanked, and Claude Puel is brought over. Claude Puel is brought over to be the coach, but also in charge of basically the whole sports football department of Saint Etienne, and he's slowly but surely, playing his part and making sure the team looks like the way he wants to be. Last season, 2020-2021 was a bit of a tough one for Saint Etienne. They went for long spells of the season without winning. I think it was something like 16 or 17 games, if I'm not mistaken. They tried a youth experiment. So Claude Puel basically told every player that wasn't going to buy in the project. So we're talking about Mvila, Boudebouz, Kazri, that if they were not happy here, they could go away. And so a few of those players were basically blacklisted. A couple of them made it late in the season back into the squad because Claude Puel needed experience in his squad. So I'm talking about Wahib Kazri, Romain Amouma, and those two players we're going to see again this season because I think Puel has learned from that failed experiment. Of course, there was all the goalkeeper drama between Ruffier and Moulin. Both players aren't at the club anymore, and the new goalkeeper is Etienne Green. In the off season, not a lot going on the transfer market for Saint Etienne. A keeper was promoted from their youth, and a couple of players came back from loan. Jean-Philippe Crasso would be maybe the one that matters the most, the striker that hopefully will bring something a bit better to Saint Etienne up front. On the going out situation, Mathieu Debuchy wasn't re-signed. Kevin Monet-Paquet wasn't re-signed. And Jesse Moulin wasn't re-signed either. He's going to Troyes to be the second goalkeeper. Anthony Modeste, who was on loan from Köln, wasn't kept either. As far as what to expect from this team, well, we can look at the preseason. They play against Le Puy, which is a small team, small regional team. They drew 2-2. They play against Bourg-en-Bresse, another small regional team. They drew 1-1. They play Grenoble. They lose 2-1. They play Clermont. They win 2-1 against Grenoble. They play Clermont. They lose 3-2. They play OM. They lose 2-1. They play Francfort. They lose 2-1. It wasn't the best of season, but it's a team that you expect this year will come together, will find its own way, I guess. The first change is the goalkeeper, of course, with Etienne Green, the well named to play with Les Verts, who's going to be the main goalkeeper this season. And there's a lot of youth to be excited about Aseteche and a lot of potential in those youth, which you would expect will finally explode in Ligue 1. They finish 11 last season, but they spent a lot of time at the 18th, 17th, 16th position, and they finally had a good run to finish the season. They sort of had lost their way, but like I said, a lot of exciting prospects. To name a few, Macron, Nordin, and Neyu, Aoshish, the former Parisian youngster, and of course the young Gourna that everyone is talking about, who's only 16, who signed a new contract with Saint Etienne, are all players that you want to follow this season with Les Verts. Is it going to work out for them? I guess it depends on what Claude Puel does bring to the table. I feel like there's definitely a need for success, and I feel like if they don't succeed, there's going to be trouble in the gen. And I don't know how long Claude Puel will keep his results if will keep his position. Excuse me, if the results don't follow. The next team that we are talking about is Bordeaux. Bordeaux, another team that has a lot to talk about. A lot happened during this off season. To cut it short, Bordeaux was backed by a group of American investors, American and Chinese investors, who decided to stop putting money into the club before the end of the season to announce it publicly, which created a bit of chaos at the club. There was rumors that the club could go into bankruptcy, therefore go back into regional divisions and not be a professional club anymore. A lot of chat around it. At the end of the day, somebody came and saved the day, and it's Gerard Lopez, the former owner of the Lille Olympique, who came in Bordeaux, brought his faithful Lieutenant Admar Lopez, who's going to be the president at Bordeaux, the same way he was the president at Lille. And basically, it looks like they're trying to recreate what they've done in Lille, but in Bordeaux, who's a much more important club historically than what Lille was at the time Gerard Lopez took over. A coach was brought over straight away. Vladimir Petkovic has arrived to replace Jean-Louis Gasset, who was in charge last season. And Vladimir Petkovic is a coach to be reckoned with. He is the coach of the Nati, the Swiss national team, for the past 7 years. He was obviously the coach because now he's in Bordeaux. And of course, famously took care of France at the Euro 2021, getting rid of them at the penalties and then losing against Spain on penalties as well. The Switzerland national team has never been as successful as they've been under Vladimir Petkovic. He's also, to tell you a little bit about this new coach who's coming to Ligue 1. He's a coach that's known to put a lot of analysis and a lot of work into his opponents as well as into his own players. He focuses quite a bit on their psychology, since it's a field that he's worked on a little bit when he was playing as well in second division in Switzerland. He actually, with the Switzerland national team, he actually had the staff and the player undergoing a psychological test, so that they can get to know each other a little bit better. And where we've seen that in a lot of clubs where it's a bit different is after that test was undertaken, he had those results available to everyone. So if you would get into an argument with somebody, you'd be able to go and check their psychological profile to see what is the best way to make up for it. Or if you are going to be in somebody's room for the next competition, you'd be able to go and check out how they are and who they are through their psychological profile, which was a bit of a revolution in the football world, and worked well in Switzerland, of course, with the results that we know. He's a coach who like to play a 3-4-2, 3-4-1-2, with a number 10, excuse me, that's free to roam. He doesn't have that in Bordeaux, so there's going to need a bit of recruitment. He likes playing, good football, position football. So I'm sure Bordeaux fans will be happy to have him there. But he is also a pragmatic coach. He adapts to the circumstances and he adapts to the players that he had. So his formation might change. If we look at the team that Bordeaux has, the goalkeeper is still the experienced Costil. Koscielny is in defense. There's a few young players coming up: Sissoko, Zerkan, Adli, Kaloum. Josh Mara is coming back from England, excuse me, where he was loaned for the second part of the season last year. And, hopefully Josh Maja and Samuel Kalou are going to be the players that are finally going to come into their own in Bordeaux and that are finally going to make a difference. Besides that, Bordeaux didn't recruit a lot. A couple of players were promoted from the youth. Of course, with Gerard Lopez and Admar Lopez coming up, the Portuguese links started to come on board. They supposedly have over over 100 million euro of budget for the transfer window and to make sure the club can I guess, worked properly. Straight away, as soon as this was announced, a few fullbacks, which is cruelly missing in Bordeaux, were announced. Gideon Mensah from the Red Bull Salzburg should join shortly. And we're talking about Ricardo Mangas as well from Boavista in Portugal, of course, with the two Lopez. The Portuguese file is always the one that you're going to look to. They've lost only a couple of players that really mattered. Excuse me. Yusuf Savali, the right back, left for Betis Séville on a free. Maxime Pouget wasn't kept, neither was Nicolas Depreville and Hatem Benarfa. As far as their early off-season, they play against Bergerac, which is a regional team. They lost 1-0. They drew against Niort 1-1. They win against Caen 2-1. They drew against Lorient 1-1, and they drew against Troyes 1-1. I expect results from Bordeaux. I expect to see them in the top 10 at the end of the season. And I expect Petkovic to wow us a little bit in the way he's going to run that team. So stay tuned and follow les Girondins Bordeaux with their brand new logo, which was the one it was 2 years ago, and that the former owner, for some reason, had decided to change. The next team that we're talking about is Angers. Angers, who has a new coach, Gérald Baticle, who came in June because Stéphane Moulin left Angers to go and coach in Ligue 2. Angers, who had a so-so off-season, a 2-2, so-so pre-season, excuse me, a 2-2 draw against Niort, a win against Châteauroux 3-0, a loss against Sporting 0-2, a win against Troyes 3-0, and a loss against Lorient 1-0. It's a club that is struggling financially, and it's not good to see. It's a club who's put some of their best talent on the transfer list because they need the money. We're talking about Fulgini, Pavlovic, Bobichon, Ninga, Tube, all players that played a role last season in making sure that Angers was going to finish 13th. It's a club that has not done any significant attempt at bringing a new player in. And the new coach, Gérald Baticle, used to be Rudy Garcia's assistant coach in Lyon, and that's his first senior gig since a little bit of a stint, an 8-month stint to be precise, at Brest in 2008. He likes to play a 3-4-1-2. It's going to be a defensive squad. Hopefully they're going to have the same mindset, the same energy that they had last year, because they were a problem for all the big club last year. But in my opinion, that's a club that's going to be into relegation trouble, and it's one of those clubs that the head of the DNCG, the financial police in football in France, sort of were aiming at when they said a few clubs might be in danger of bankruptcy. I think Angers is definitely in danger financially, and you got to hope for them that they're going to work it out. Let me grab some water. The next club over that we're going to discuss is le Stade de Reims. The Stade de Reims, who as well changed coach. I think we should have started by saying that a lot of clubs have new coaches. So Stéphane Guillon is out. Oscar Garcia is in. Oscar Garcia, who's a coach who has had a lot of club in the last few years. I'm going to take a sip of water and let you know who it was. Oscar Garcia has coached since 2013 Brighton and Hove Albion, Maccabi Tel Aviv, Watford, Red Bull Salzburg, Saint-Etienne, Olympiacos, Celta Vigo, and now Stade de Reims. Clearly not a coach who stays a while in post. He stayed 2 years at Salzburg, and that's probably about it. Every other club was only for a year. Um, with Oscar Garcia in, there's a little bit of fear, I think, with the Stade de Reims fans because it's a coach that we've seen failing at Saint-Etienne, and no one really looked forward to have on their bench. They had a complicated preseason. They won against Paris FC and they won against Valenciennes 2 and Chambly, three clubs from lower division. They lost 2-1 against Lens and they lost 3-1 against Offenheim. More importantly, they lost their star striker, Boulaye Dia, who left for 12 million euros to Villarreal, the Europa League champion. And they are potentially going to lose El Bilal Touré, the 19-year-old forward, who was, maybe the future for Reims, but who said that he doesn't want to stay in a club like Stade de Reims. Rajkovic, the famous goalkeeper who's so good every single year, is also in demand, but every year is in demand. And I think what's the most concerning of them all, it's Younis Abdelhamid, the captain, is in his last year of contract, and there's no sign that he's going to resign your contract. And he is supposedly in talks with Saudi Arabian clubs. It's another club that has a few worrying signs. It's a club that was counting a lot on their solidity defensively, plus the ability of Boulaye Dia to score goals, because he scored, if I'm not mistaken, 14 goals or 13 goals last season. And now they don't have it anymore, and they didn't recruit anyone except a second keeper and getting a centre back on loan. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be quite the worry, I think, in Reims. And as far as I'm concerned, they're a serious contender for relegation from the get-go, just because of what we've seen for Oscar Garcia, unfortunately, in France. And you got to hope that it's going to be a bit better for Reims this season. Sorry, I need a lot of water today. The next club that we're going to talk about is Strasbourg. Strasbourg, who is one of the clubs that I'm actually excited about in that bottom part of the table in Ligue 1. Strasbourg, who is now coached by Julien Stéphan, who had the success that we know at Rennes, brought Rennes to their first Champions League games, brought Rennes to a cup, French Cup win against Paris Saint-Germain a couple of years back. Julien Stéphan arrived, and Julien Stéphan brought in with him Gamero very, very early on in the Mercato, which is a very good piece of business. Gamero, the former striker from Strasbourg, of course, but also Paris Saint-Germain and Valence, and Atletico Madrid, who's now back where it all began, at Strasbourg. They lost Simakan, who's now at the Red Bull Leipzig. They lost Mitrovic as well, who has gone to Retafe. But they've kept most of the other players. They've done some smart recruitment. They got Karol Fila, a young Polish right back from Gdańsk. They got Lucas Perrin on loan from Marseille, who's a centre back that was quite promising for Marseille last season. They got Arolu on a loan again from Monaco, just like last season. But they've also, more importantly, kept most of their important players. They've kept Matt Sels, to start with, the Belgium goalkeeper, who was injured all season last year and who's now back. They've kept Lienard, the captain. They've kept Bellegarde, Thomasson, Waris, Ayork. They've kept Habib Diallo, who came from Metz last season. And so they are, I think, one of the teams that's going to be a force to reckon with. I believe Julien Stéphan can build something serious with this team. I believe the association of Gamero and Ayork up front can create a lot of danger. Ayork has scored 16 goals last season. He is in fine form, and it's, I think, the year for him to actually confirm. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see Strasbourg, now that the public is back. Lameno, their stadium, was one of the stadium where it's almost impossible to win when they had their public, and then COVID hit, no public, and then they keep losing at home. Now that the crowd is back at home, I wouldn't be surprised if Strasbourg becomes one of those very complicated team to play against. And I anticipate a top 10 win for the club from the east of France. Next up is the FC Lorient, the nice surprise on and off of last season, promoted last season, coached by Christophe Pellissier, of course, since 2019. Lorient had a good preseason, a win against Brest 3-2, a draw against Bordeaux 1-1, a win against Nantes 1-0, a win against Angers 1-0. So very positive. It's a team in progression. It's a team that played good football last year, and they had some good results despite some pretty harsh moments. It's a team that had found their standouts: Terem Moffi, Loriente, Wissa. It's a team that needs a striker, and they had recruited a striker last season in Adrian Gerbic, but he hadn't produced what we expect him to do. This year might be the year that he wakes up and that he plays at the level that was his when he was in Ligue 2 a couple of seasons ago. They didn't lose a lot of important players, so they keep their core, they keep their keeper. They've added a couple of unknown player, I guess, Igor Silva, a right back, who was playing in Croatia last season, and a few young player. Plus, they registered some player coming back from loan, namely Umut Bozok from Troyes. I'm sorry, he was loaned again in Turkey. I just realized that. But yeah, anyway, they've got the same team basically that played last season. Nardi is still the goalkeeper. You got Mendes, Laporte, and Morel in defense, which is quite experimented. You got Abergel in the middle, and more importantly, up front, Loriente, Mofi, Gerbic, Wissa is going to be something. A team that's going to improve again. I don't see them, being relegated. They might be in the fight for it, but I actually have some good hopes that Lorient is slowly building towards becoming a regular in Ligue 1, and they're going to be able to stay more than only 2 seasons this time around. Next team over is Stade Brestois, who was impressive last season at time under Olivier Dalloglio, who loved to play football, so much so that the coach is now gone to Montpellier, and the former coach from Montpellier came to Brest, a little bit of a swap there. Michel Derzakarian is the new coach at Stade Brestois. He just arrived this off-season. Brest, who didn't have a great preseason, a loss against Lorient 3-2, a loss against a couple of local teams, Stade Briochin and Nantes, 2-1 and 3-1 respectively, a win against Plabennec 3-1, and a loss against Mallorca 2-1. Obviously a team that hasn't impressed in friendly games, despite a lot of promises that were shown last year. They lost Perrault, who's arguably the best fullback in Ligue 1 last season, to Southampton for a good sum, 12 million euros. They did recruit smartly. They found that young fullback, Uronen, the Finnish international. They got Lilian Brassier from Rennes, the centre back. But I think they really need a striker, which is what they don't have and what they should try and find. They have Charbonnier, who was great in Ligue 2, not so good in Ligue 1, but who might go back to Ligue 2 and play for Auxerre soon. They've kept some important players. They've kept Larsonneur, of course, their young goalkeeper. They've kept Belkebla and Philippotto and Fèvre so far in the midfield, although Fèvre is linked with a few moves. And they've also kept Honora and Cardona up front. But it's a team that, I think we need to see Derzakarian's way of playing is not always all about being offensive. Sometimes it's about making sure that he preserves the result. So we have to see which Derzakarian are we going to see. Are we going to see Montpellier Derzakarian, who want to score goals, or Nantes Derzakarian, who just wanted to defend and not concede? One player to follow in Brest is the goalkeeper, Larsonneur. He's a goalkeeper that has been announced in Marseille and in bigger clubs like this for a while, but he didn't quite confirm. And I think now he's at crossroads where his career could go either way after this season. If he has the season that he has had a couple of years ago, there's a chance that a big club's coming for him. If he does what he did last year in 2020, 2021, where he made a lot of mistakes and wasn't the most reassuring, I'm afraid he's condemning himself to be at best a Ligue 1 goalkeeper. Brest, I think, will be in the fight for relegation up until the end, and you got to hope that they're going to bring in some weapons offensively if they want to avoid being in trouble for too long. The next club over is Nantes. Nantes, another club who's looking like the shadow of itself for a while now. Another historically successful club, coached by Antoine Comboiré, who joined in February 2021. Nantes didn't have a great preseason, a victory against Brest 3-1 and 4 losses against Caen, Niort, and Lorient 1-0, and against Clermont 2-1. So a team who was able to score only twice in preseason, and it's clearly where they need to recruit. A team that has kept their star goalkeeper Alban Lafont so far, that has kept Ludovic Blas and Moses Simon so far. But like we said, it's a club that's a shadow of itself right now. They are under the infamous president Valdemar Kita. They've lost one of their main offensive threat in Imran Louza, who's gone in England to Watford for 10 million euros. And they've lost, I guess, sort of more importantly, their football last season. They're not playing the football that you expect them to play. We haven't seen Comboiré putting anything in place that would mean that they're going to look better this season. The only recruits that they did really is Rémi Descamps, the goalkeeper from Charleroi, who's going to come for as a backup for Lafont in case Lafont has to go. And then they got Willian Cyprien loaned from Parma to bring a bit of solidity in the midfield. It's a club, every Nantes fan will tell you even that needs a complete makeover from the top down. I think Nantes fans would be happy to see their club going down to Ligue 2 or National if it means that Valdemar Kita leaves. I think it's going to be another long season for Les Canaries, and I would hope that things are going to change, but I think even Nantes fan might hope that the club doesn't succeed so that they can get a new president, get a new coach, and come back to their winning ways the way they were in the 19s and early 2000s. Only 2 clubs left to present on that second part of the Ligue 1 season preview, and that's the 2 clubs that are coming from Ligue 2, 2 exciting prospects this season, and 2 clubs that I don't know will fight for survival. I wouldn't be surprised if at least one of them solidly goes into the top 10. And that's the first club that we're going to talk about, the Ligue 2 champions, Estac de Espérance Sportive 3, Aube Champagne is the full name, coached by Laurent Batles since 2019. Of course, mainly known for being one of the latest additions to the City Football Group, the Abu Dhabi-backed group that also owns Manchester City, Melbourne City, where I live, Mumbai, New York. They have 11 clubs within their galaxy, and now they have 3 since early last season. They didn't change too much last season. They kept the coach the way it was, and that coach brought them to a title in Ligue 2. It's a team that has a lot of experienced Ligue 2 players, and Laurent Batles count on them to come and do something in top tier football. In preseason, they drew against Nîmes 2-2. They won against Dijon 2-1. They lost to Angers 3-0. They lost to Metz 2-1, and they drew against Bordeaux 1-1. But it's a team that we expect to get good results. Those experienced Ligue 2 players that we were talking about, Gauthier Galland, the goalkeeper, Florian Tardieu, the midfielder, who's actually somebody who's from the city that I'm from in south of France, is from Istres, Giraudon, Kwame, who was on loan from Lille, all impressed last season in Ligue 2, and all our players that are going to be, relied on this season. And then Troyes recruited smartly. They got Renaud Ripard, who was basically the only player that was fit in Nîmes. They got Mama Malde, who in Dijon also was maybe the main offensive weapon. Chadli, free for Nîmes as well. Jesse Moulin, the backup keeper from Saint-Etienne, coming to be the backup keeper to Gauthier Galland. And then they got a young Brazilian talent called Metinho. And a player on loan from Manchester City, Issa Boré, the right back who was loaned in Belgium last season. It's going to be interesting to see because of a lot of factors. First, I think we expect them to actually succeed in Ligue 1. They didn't lose a lot of players. They kept their main core. Of course, Laurent Batles is still at the head of the team, although there was a lot of rumors that he might leave for Bordeaux or for Montpellier. And they want to succeed. They want to show that they can stay in Ligue 1 and that they can settle in Ligue 1. Another thing that makes this team interesting is they belong to the City Football Club, and they are the third team in Europe, if I'm not mistaken, who belong to the City Football Club in the top 5 league, I should say, after Girona in Spain, who, interestingly enough, once they were bought over by the City Football Club, went down to second division. For Troyes, it's the other way around. They came up to Ligue 1. But if, who knows, Troyes is very successful and ends up achieving top of the table and Champions League in a year or two, they won't be able to play Champions League because Manchester City is qualified and hopefully will remain qualified for this competition. So it's going to be interesting to see how Troyes is treated in France by the City Football Group, if they're here to win, if they're here to develop young players. It looks like it's the latter, but they did recruit Renaud Ripard, who's not the youngest player. So they also definitely want to settle in Ligue 1, and that's a team that I'm excited to follow this season. And yeah, I would not be surprised if they end up in the top 10 in the first year in Ligue 1. Last but not least, a historical club, Clermont Foot, their first ever season in Ligue 1 is starting this year. The coach is Pascal Gastien, who's been in charge since 2017, which makes him the most experienced coach in Ligue 1, at least the coach that is with his team for the longest time. In preseason, they drew against Grenoble, but they won against Montpellier. They won against a selection of the UNFP, the Professional Footballer Association of France. They won against Saint-Etienne 3-2. They won against Nantes 2-1. They're a bit of the unknown of the year. They're a club that has been talked about quite a bit a couple of years ago when Ahmed Scheffer bought them over. Ahmed Scheffer used to be Sepp Blatter's number 2 at FIFA. And he bought Clermont as well as the SC Lustenau in Austria and the FC Vendsyssel in Denmark. He bought 3 clubs from second division in 3, I guess, lesser leagues to see what was going to happen. He did leave Pascal Gastien in charge because he believed that he was the best one to coach a Ligue 2 team. And he was right. It worked out well. In 2019, 2020, they had a real chance of going up once the season was interrupted by COVID. They were only 3 points away from promotion. And they obviously took their chance in 2021, finishing second with 72 points. They got a couple of players for free, excuse me, Elbasan Rashani and Sem Turkmen, but they mainly kept their player from Ligue 2, Desma Zedatka, Tel Alevina, Dosu Berthomier, all those players. Gastien, the son of the coach, Johan Gastien plays for Clermont as well under Pascal. They've kept a core of player that has done well in Ligue 2 and that is coming back to try and do something in Ligue 1. Like I said, it's the unknown of the year. They might do well like Lorient and Lens last season. They might struggle and have to fight until the end for survival. It's definitely a team that I'm excited to see in Ligue 1. And it's a team that, will, I think, just be fun to watch because it's their first Ligue 1 season, and that's that added motivation, which I hope will not going to be a burden for this team. All right, that was a bit shorter, of course, than the top 10 because there's a lot more things to say for the top 10. The season is starting this year. As we said, of course, the games were confirmed. The first game of the season, as I said, it was 3 PSG. It's not the first game of the season. It will be Monaco-Nantes on Friday night, Saturday morning here in Australia at 5 a.m. And then the rest of the first game will be Lyon-Brest, Troyes against Paris Saint-Germain. Interesting to see Abu Dhabi versus Qatar. Rennes against Lens, Saint-Etienne against Lorient, Nice against Rennes, Strasbourg against Angers. All those matches will happen between Saturday night and Sunday afternoon. Bordeaux versus Clermont as well will be Sunday afternoon. And then on Sunday night or Monday morning here, Metz versus Lille. And the last game of the first match day will be Montpellier against Marseille, the derby of the south of France. Thank you very much for being with me once again for the Farmers Corners FC. Ligue 1 season preview is now over. The next episode will be to actually talk about Ligue 1 results and what happened during that first game day. We hope a lot of goals. We hope a lot of surprises. Thank you for following the Farmers Corners FC podcast. As usual, feel free to comment, leave a message, contact me, subscribe, follow, share, and don't hesitate to ask some question. A quick shout out to a few podcasts that I've been on this week: the Late Winner Show, the Beautiful Game. A couple of guys that have invited me to talk about French football on their pod, which I love to do. Thank you very much. Ciao, bye bye. À la semaine prochaine. See you next week. Bye bye.